Hello everyone and welcome back guys to a brand new video where today we're here for something a little bit different. Now for those of you guys that aren't aware, don't follow Codemasters news too closely, anything like that, you won't have realised yet, but Formula 1 yesterday announced that Codemasters has renewed the license for the F1 game until 2025 with the potential to take it even further to 2027 as well. Now personally, I think this is quite a good thing, I'll be honest with you. I know a lot of people aren't so sure about the idea, but I personally think, the development we've seen on the F1 games over the last couple of years in terms of career mode has been so good. F1 2019 has really been a game changer in my opinion, and it's probably why, I'm already looking like it's going to be the game I've done the most in terms of career mode on this channel. But yeah, today I wanted to go through and talk about 5 things that I personally think the F1 games need, obviously with Codemasters now having a long-term projected plan for the games once again. Obviously, it's probably up to this point been quite difficult to really sort of develop a long-term solution without knowing how far in advance that solution would be useful for at the end of the day. But now we've got, 7, maybe even 9 years worth or 8 years worth of potential future development for the game. I think it's very, very important that now, sort of with the next generation of consoles coming out next year, everything like that, the F1 game will probably come out in 2021 for the new generation. But I personally, think it's a really, really important idea that Codemasters now try to get some of these features that I personally think would be useful for F1 2020 and beyond. Now, some of them are probably a bit more important than others. Some of them are a bit more for certain people than others. But hopefully, I've come up with 5 ideas that, at least for everyone, there'll be one that you like in this video. Now, if you've got any more ideas as well, leave them down in the comments below. I'm definitely intrigued. There's probably something huge that I've completely missed in this video and everything like that. So yeah, definitely leave your ideas as well below for what you'd like to see from the future F1 games. Now, kicking it off then with number 1, and that is VR. Now, obviously, virtual reality has been a bit of an up and down thing over the last couple of years. Personally, I think for sim racing, it is still looking very, very strong, and I think the F1 games are really, really missing out on quite a big audience due to the lack of VR. Now, it quite possibly is already in development, in all honesty. I personally have no idea whether it is, whether it isn't. But, with Dirt getting VR, sort of on all 3 games now, if I'm not mistaken. Obviously, Dirt Rally 1, Dirt Rally 2.0, and then Dirt 4, I think, has VR support as well. I might be wrong about that one. I think it's only time that the Formula 1 franchise gets that step up. And I honestly believe if Codemasters announced VR for the next F1 game, that would be the time I'd buy one at last. I've always sort of ummed and ahed about one, but I think, if the Codemasters F1 games do get VR, then I'm certainly going to be picking up an Oculus Rift or a HTC Vive at the end of the day there. But yeah, VR, I think they're definitely missing out a big chunk of the audience. I see a lot of people saying no VR, no buy. It was the same with Dirt Rally 2.0 before it got its VR update, everything like that. So yeah, personally, I think VR is definitely a, not a must necessarily, but certainly a big, big feature that I'm sure a lot of people are really, really after on the F1 games at the end of the day, though. Moving on, though, into the second one now. Obviously, the VR is sort of for everyone, really, online, offline, everything like that. The next feature, personally, is, pretty much exclusively for online on F1 at 2020 and beyond. And that is, finally, we need some dedicated servers for this game. Obviously, we've seen the rise of F1 esports. Multiplayer is clearly becoming a much, much bigger thing. We need some dedicated servers. MotoGP has dedicated servers now, and that game is obviously a whole lot smaller than, the official Formula 1 franchise as well. So, dedicated servers, just to try and reduce, although lag and things like that certainly aren't too bad nowadays, I just feel like it's finally time, especially with our long-term development plan now ready. Dedicated servers certainly is something that I personally think needs to be implemented for the future of the F1 games. Just try and make online a little bit more accessible and hopefully just, a little bit more of a smoother experience at the end of the day. Now, I know there's still bugs here and there with online. Hopefully those can get patched out in time as well. But servers, I think, are definitely a good way to go to really try to boost the F1 games. None of this, though, always online stuff like you've got with Dirt Rally 2.0. That is incredibly frustrating to deal with. Just when you want to go online, we need some dedicated servers for F1 2020 and beyond. Now, the next 3 are sort of more career mode focused. I think online is a little bit difficult to say much apart from, you know, patch out the few bugs here and there that there is, and servers. So the last 3 features that I've got in this video are sort of more online focused. Now, the first one is the damage model. Now, personally, I think the engine damage model, if you want to call it a damage model, and obviously the front wing model are, for the most part, alright, but I just think that we need more damage around the rest of the car on the F1 games. You know, we need to be able to see, like we saw for obviously Nico Hülkenberg at the Mexican Grand Prix last weekend, we need to be able to see, you know, the rear wing fall off, things like that. Obviously, we get the DRS failures. That's sometimes a good step, depending on if it happens to you or not. And, you know, it's always funny when it happens to someone else in a qualifying session. You know, going around Silverstone with the DRS open and suddenly it just decides it's not going to close. But yeah, it's one of those things where there needs to be a bit of flexibility with it as well. That's going to be another thing I talk about in just a moment as well. But yeah, personally, you know, we need a more sophisticated damage model around the rest of the car. You know, rear wings, side pods, everything like that. These things need to be able to pick up damage as well and have sort of an effect on the car as well. Because at the moment, it's, although I've never really seen anyone do it, you know, for example, this is a hypothetical that I've seen sometimes happen by accident on F1 online. Obviously, if you go into the back of someone else, you know, say in a league race or something like that, obviously you can pick up a lot of front wing damage, and it does nothing to them. Now, we need to obviously see, sometimes I agree it's probably going to be a bit unfair, but that's the way racing works at the end of the day. You know, we need to be able to see, you know, potentially you run into the back of someone, you pick up front wing damage, and, you know, they potentially lose their front wing, pick up some lose their rear wing, pick up some rear wing damage, everything like that at the end of the day, you know, really, because it always feels strange, the fact that the front wing can get all this sophisticated damage and then nothing else can at the end of the day. Now, moving on into number 4, this one was probably quite a predicted one from a lot of you as well, obviously, with the rise of Formula 2 on F1 2019, I think it's only fair that we get a fully fledged, you know, sort of all the FIA F1 weekend series coming to the next game. Now, obviously, Formula 3 is probably the big one, the most important one, but I wouldn't mind seeing Porsche Super Cup on there as well. Those things are brilliant as well. I love the Porsche Carrera GT3 Cup cars, everything like that as well there. But I think, yeah, FIA Formula 3 is definitely the big one. But I wouldn't mind seeing the Porsche Cup cars on there as well. I'm not too sure how they fare on the F1, you know, sort of the handling model, everything like that. Personally, obviously, it's very, very, you know, optimized for open wheelers at the end of the day. But I'd certainly be intrigued to see how a Porsche Super Cup would fare. But Formula 3 is definitely a big one that I'd love to see come to, you know, F1 2020, F1 2021. Just allows people to, you know, have that road to Formula 1, everything like that, obviously, if they're, you know, if they want to. I do like the fact as well that obviously you can just jump straight into F1 as well, obviously, if that's more your cup of tea at the end of the day as well there. But yeah, Formula 3, Porsche Super Cup perhaps as well, certainly something that I, you know, I wouldn't have even predicted it 18 months ago, but with the rise of Formula 2 on F1 2019, we really do want to see, you know, Formula 3, the full journey to F1 at the end of the day, and yeah, Porsche Super Cup as well. Perhaps on the side as a bit of a special video as well. But anyway, moving on though into the 5th and final one, and this one is probably a little bit more sort of a general thing on the F1 games, but I feel that we need more flexibility on the F1 games. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean things like I just said, with the option to go to Formula 2 and then Formula 1, obviously having to do those 3 race scenario modes, everything like that. I think we need to see sort of a more personal experience on the F1 game. Now, to me, that would probably be sort of sliders, things like that, to that certain effect, where you have the option to customize your career mode more than ever before. Now, whether that be realistic car failures, you know, for example, always the good example is, you know, the McLaren Honda a few years ago, where you have the option to, you know, say if you go to McLaren, you still get those failures more often than anyone else in this series. And obviously nowadays there haven't been too many cars that have particularly major reliability issues in F1 2019 in real life, but you know, having that option to be more flexible with that sort of thing. You know, if you opt to go with Mercedes, perhaps the engine lasts a whole lot better. You know, if you go to Ferrari, it blows up at Russia when you don't let your teammate back through. Everything like that. Just, I feel like those sorts of things, we need to be able to have the option to make our career mode our career mode at the end of the day. You know, if me and someone else both do a Haas Road to Glory, some things can't be so different. Obviously, the upgrade paths, I think those are phenomenal on the F1 games. They've really revolutionized it as well since F1 2016. But just being able to, you know, customize these more things. You know, we need red flags, we need the safety car to be a bit more consistent, everything like that as well. But just having that flexibility, you know, to make it as hardcore or as fun as you like on the F1 games as well. But anyway, though, guys, that is my personal ideas of 5 features I'd like to see on the F1 games in the future. Now, Codemasters have been given the license for the next 6-7 years as well. Let me know, obviously, your guys' thoughts and feelings about this, and also, obviously, ideas you'd like to see as well. Perhaps we'll make a part 2 of this video like I did with the 5 features I'd like to see on F1 2020. This one is a bit more future-proof, everything like that. But thank you all so much for watching this video nonetheless. Do get yourself subscribed if you're new around here as well, and you do want to see more F1 2019 content on the channel. Later on today, we will hopefully be having the last question mark challenge for the US Grand Prix, and then over the weekend is back to the FIA Formula 2 career mode as well. But that will do us for this video, though, guys. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will hopefully see you guys next time for a brand new video.